There's a city in Honduras where nobody voted for the government, and that's exactly the point. The year is 2017. You're the president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez. The good news is you're president. The bad news is Honduras is one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere. Your government is so corrupt it often fails to provide basic services, regularly steals taxpayer money, interferes in elections, and the country is basically a drug cartel dressed up as a nation-state. You still want foreign investment, but nobody wants to invest in a country that is so messed up they are too afraid their stuff will just get straight up stolen. So what do? Well, obviously there is only one answer. Invite a bunch of crazy libertarians to partially govern a small part of your territory. More specifically, allow them to govern Próspera, a 58-acre portion of formerly uninhabited land on the island of Roatan, with the option of buying more land if things go well. The groundwork was actually laid way back in 2013 when Juan Orlando Hernandez was just president of the National Congress. Back then, the National Congress replaced 4 Supreme Court justices and then passed 3 constitutional amendments and the organic law of the ZDs. These changes allowed for the Honduran government to authorize enclaves that had their own administrative, fiscal, and judicial system. This is not an entirely unprecedented idea. In fact, it was suggested by a Nobel-winning economist, Paul Romer, and similar ideas had been used in Ireland, Dubai, and China. But Próspera was different from the special economic zones that came before it. Instead of a country deciding to reduce regulation and taxes in a certain city, Próspera was replacing the entire tax and civil, but not criminal code of a country, and it was giving a 50-year guarantee written into Honduran constitutional law, whereas China could shut down Shenzhen tomorrow if it wanted to, and Dubai's laws, even in their special economic zones, were ultimately approved by its ruling royal family. Próspera's tax and civil code were thought up by Próspera Inc., a USA-based company started by a Venezuelan-American CEO by the name of Eric Bremen. Moreover, Próspera Incorporated managed to additionally protect itself through international trade treaties that together stipulated that investments in the island could not be confiscated or shut down by the Honduran government for 50 years. The day-to-day running of the city is managed by a council that is half appointed by Próspera and half elected by the residents of Próspera. It would be as if Google created a city in the United States and got to control the civil court system, the police, and all the civil regulations, and got to appoint half the city representatives in the legislature. So what happens when a bunch of corporation-loving libertarians get to create a company that gets to write the tax and civil law of a Honduran city, a 5% personal tax rate, a 1% corporate tax rate, and choose your own regulatory apparatus, where companies get to choose their own regulatory environment, or can even propose a new regulatory regime, as long as they can get an insurance provider to agree to insure them. 12% of the tax proceeds go directly to the Honduran government, while Próspera keeps the other 88%. So anyway, Próspera promptly raises millions of dollars from notable American investors from all over Silicon Valley, including free market evangelical billionaire Peter Thiel and notable American conehead Mark Andreessen, all through Pronomos Capital, a venture capital firm founded by libertarian economist Milton Friedman's grandson, Patrick Friedman. If you can't tell already, the political optics of Próspera are terrible. A bunch of predominantly white, mostly libertarians backed by billionaire Silicon Valley money are coming to a poor third world country to change its civil law code to be more friendly to giant multinational corporations, in a country with a long history of private companies overthrowing governments and installing their own crony capitalists. To make matters worse, Próspera originally introduced themselves to the Hondurans who lived nearby as just another development rather than a charter city, and to make matters extra worse, the original law authorizing ZDs allowed for the country of Honduras to expropriate land and sell it to Próspera. And to make matters super extra worse, Próspera showed investors a mock-up that included nearby Crawfish Rock as part of the planned expansion of Próspera. The residents of Crawfish Rock protested. They ignited a movement. Próspera turned from an obscure development to a nationwide issue. The leftist Libre Party rode this issue hard, arguing that foreigners were going to take Honduran land, and that Próspera would inevitably expand, and that all the ZD zones, including Próspera, needed to be stopped. To add fuel to the fire, the ruling National Party that had okayed Próspera got embroiled in an epic drug-dealing corruption scandal, which was large even by Honduran standards. Indeed, Juan Orlando Hernandez would eventually be extradited to the USA and convicted of drug trafficking before being pardoned by Trump for some reason. And the Libre Party won the November 2021 national election by 15 percentage points. They repealed the law that allowed for the ZDs, replaced the Supreme Court, got the constitutional amendments ruled unconstitutional, and repealed the organic law of the Zs. So that's the end of Próspera, right? Kind of like Avatar, but with much more cocaine? Wrong. This is where things get really wild. Remember when I said that the National Party had given Próspera further protection through international trade treaties? Those treaties were still in effect, and Próspera sued the Honduran government for violating them for an incredible $10.75 billion, or 1/3 of the entire Honduran economy. The case would be decided in international arbitration, not in Honduran court. Legal observers noted that Próspera would probably win, and even then President Biden's State Department also jumped into the fray, warning Honduras not to discourage foreign direct investment. And so, the Libre Party, despite making shutting down Próspera a signature campaign promise, just kind of let it be. Even if it did stop Honduran banks from doing business with it. But remember how I said Honduras was messed up? Well, the Libre Party immediately got in trouble for the same things the National Party got in trouble for. That is, being a corrupt narco state that ran over human rights, interfered with elections, and failed to deliver economic growth. And surprise, surprise, the National Party won the 2025 election, and super duper promised not to deal drugs this time. While domestic public opinion remains firmly anti-Próspera, and the Supreme Court has already ruled Próspera unconstitutional, the National Party is much less against Próspera than the Libre Party, and as of 2025 hasn't done anything to dismantle it, and the government is made of people who originally championed the project. In fact, from 2019 to 2025, the zone has now grown to 1,000 acres, albeit through voluntary land sale, rather than government expropriation. After all this, you might be thinking to yourself that this is a pretty cut and dry case of 21st century imperialism, right? But not so fast. It's more complicated than that. Think of it from Próspera's point of view. Your name, Eric Briman. You grew up in Venezuela and watched as firsthand as Venezuela spiraled into poverty and despair. Sometimes you didn't have money for groceries, but you work hard, you move to the United States, and you pull yourself by your bootstraps and get wealthy through finance. Yet you can't help but think, why does Latin America have to be poor? It doesn't, not if it had better governing rules. So you think up some rules that you think would be ideal for economic development, so that the Honduran people can become rich, at least in the long term. Still, you obviously need the Honduran government's consent. The current Honduran government is made up of corrupt drug traffickers with shady human rights records. But after all, it's democratic-ish, and they're the ones in charge. You have to deal with them. So you make an agreement. In exchange for attracting a bunch of money to Honduras, you get to think up some of the laws. The agreement is as democratic and lawful as things get in Honduras. And here is the thing. You deliver. Around 250 companies with lots of money set up shop at Próspera. Sure, you're not exactly democratic, but neither is the Honduran government. And the surrounding Hondurans get jobs that pay above market rates. You're paying taxes to Honduras. Your laws are working. Próspera is prospering. But then there is a problem. The corrupt Libre government, who is known for doing stuff like literally torturing people, suspending constitutional rights, and actually taking land away without consent, wants to shut you down because you might take land away. It's a clear violation of the agreement you signed, and so you sue to try to keep Honduras's best hope at development and prosperity alive. So do you think this is just modern-day colonialism with extra steps, or a notable experiment in trying to figure out how to improve the governance of poor countries? Who do you think should get to make the rules that make the rules?